Hi, this is Andrew Prokop. I want to show you what I've done to integrate Context Store, Breeze, and Watson natural language processing into an application, into a textbot application. So I have a Breeze application here, or Breeze Snap-in. Really, we need to start with Watson. So I've created a Watson conversation, which I call BreezeBot. This application has three intents, so it processes three different kinds of things. Customer asking for the address of the store, asks for the if the store is open on holidays, and asks for store hours. So obviously this is a sample program for a store that wants to send this information out in a text bot. So let's just open up one of these. Let's open up hours. You see that I trained it with a bunch of different questions. When are you open? When do you close? When do you open today? I have similar sorts of things for directions. How do I find you? How do I get to you? I need directions. So if Watson encounters any of those things, it will come back and it will say, give the intent of directions or intent of hours, and I have similar sorts of things for holidays. I also have a series of dialogues that I built. So let's open up, for instance, hours. So if the bot recognizes hours, so if it says somebody's asking about hours, then it can respond back with, we are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Same thing for directions, that we turn the address. And for holidays, it says we are closed on Christmas and Thanksgiving. So this is the Watson aspect of it. So I have a Watson application. All Watson applications are assigned IDs. So I can identify what the workspace is, so that when I send a call up to, when I send information up to Watson, I can identify the application or the workspace or the conversation that I wanted to talk to. So let's come back over here to Breeze. This application starts on an incoming SMS message. Immediately what it does is it pulls out the phone number and it saves the phone number. And then I go off into Context Store and I look to see if I have this person, a record for this person. If I do, then I'm going to go on and process it. If I don't have a record for this person, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this person into Context Store, and then I'm going to ask the person for his or her name, because I want to have some personalization for this. So first SMS message for a new person comes in and says, who are you, so that I can talk to you. The next message that will come in, it will find this person in the Context Store. It will assign the name that was just passed in, because this is the second text message in. It will assign that into a variable. If we're in the initialization phase, then I'm going to go in and then I'm going to update the context for that user with the name. I'm going to send a message back to tell the user what it is that this bot can help with. So first message comes in, I go and say, I create the context and say, tell me your name. Second message that comes in, I take the name and I store it in the context, and then I tell the customer what I can help you with. From now on, we're out of the initialization phase. I'll actually move this into the next phase, move the state machine along. So now, when somebody sends a message in, now I send it over to the Watson conversation. So the Watson conversation will process that and will tell me what it is that it's found. If it finds nothing at all, then I'm going to go back and tell the customer, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. If it finds an intent, it's going to process that intent. My application will then, I have directions, hours, and holidays. These are the three intents. If it comes back with an intent that I haven't coded for, then it's going to come back and tell the customer I haven't coded for that intent. Let's open up one of these things. So let's open up the send text message for the address. So if I open up the input mapping, then what you'll see is the text message goes back to the person who sent it. If I open up the text that comes back, this is the interesting part, is notice there's a little bit of hard coding. I say thanks, and then I pull the name. This is the name that's pulled from the context. And then I give back the text that's in Watson. So there's no hard coding in the application to give an address or any of those sorts of things. All that information comes back from the Watson application. So that is the storage place for the conversation. And the same thing would occur for things like the hours. So if I open up the hours and I put input mapping, you'll actually see identical code. And we'll basically say thanks, the name that's from the context, and then here's the message from Watson. I could have actually processed all of these with just, basically coming back from Watson, because if Watson doesn't understand something, it's going to do exactly the same thing. It's going to come back, because one of the defaults is if it's an intent that I don't process, I can have that as, and I put it as I haven't implemented that command, give the name, and then the message from Watson. So I could have actually done all of the intents except for the unknown intent with one branch, and I've broken them off into 3 because I wanted to show that you can break them off into 3, or maybe there'd be other things I would want to do, but in this case I basically just respond back with the answer, and then the bot ends. I should point out that in all of these cases, when a text message comes in, it processes the text message and then ends. Processes the next text message and ends. There's no sitting and waiting for the next text message. All of that is really the matching is done through the context store. So there's no waiting. So I don't send a text message and wait for a response. I tend to send a text message and end. And any of the state machine, in a sense, is within the context store. But really, a lot of the state machine processing occurs within the conversation. You'll notice I don't have a lot of if they said this, if they said that, if they said this, if they said that. I really do that in Watson. So inside of the Watson application is where I can do all the hard work of training the application. But I don't have to train it with every single phrase. I train it with just enough, and then that's where natural language processing and artificial intelligence comes in. All right? So that's the basic flow for how this application works. So I ran this live, and I just captured my screen to show you what's going on. So in the first example, I just send in a hi, and then it comes back and says, before I can help you, please tell me your name. It wants my name. Remember, I need to put that in the context. I don't need to, but for example purposes, I do that. And I say Andrew, and it comes back and says, hi Andrew, I can help you with store location and hours. And so I say, where are you located? Thanks, Andrew. So Andrew comes from the context. Thanks was the hard-coded part. And then this part, we are located at, that comes from Watson. Next thing, are you open tomorrow? And thanks, Andrew, and I just repeat that back. We are open 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. In the next example, what I do is I say, are you open on holidays? And go, thanks, Andrew, we are closed on Christmas and Thanksgiving. Now, I've asked where you located, but you can say, what is your address? How do I get to you? Those sorts of things. Again, that's where natural language processing comes in, and that's for Watson, the power of Watson. The same thing with open. Are you open tomorrow? I've trained the application with a number of phrases, but Watson takes over after that, and I don't have to have every possible permutation of are you open tomorrow, are you open today, what are your hours, things like that. Watson handles all of that for me, and again, returns an intent, and then intent is what I use to process the, process what the user is trying to ask. Okay, let's wrap things up. Okay, the point of this application, and this is a very simple application, and, it doesn't do a whole lot, but the power of what's happening is really what I want you to see. And that is the 3 things. I'm using Breeze to build the application and to use the communications elements of Breeze. I'm using Context Store to allow you to main context for this conversation. So again, when I get a new conversation, I create a record. I can then update the record. Over here, when I get additional information, I use that information to drive, in a sense, my state machine, and to keep some information about the context. I'm only keeping the name and the state, but I can keep a lot of things in Context Store, just choosing not to at this point. The next thing is Watson, and Watson is probably the core to a lot of these things. I've really built the conversation in Watson, so I built intents. I could build entities as well. Those are really kind of modifiers, but I built intents, and I can continue to add new intents. I built dialogues. What do you do when you get to one of these situations? So I don't have to hard code anything in Breeze at all. I could do it all within the Watson application. I can build all sorts of different kinds of flows back here. I could build some sort of menuing tree, and this is very simple. But the point is, and what's important to notice, is that at the end of every one of these, every time I send a text message, I just end. I don't sit there and wait for the response to come back. I match the messages, or I match the customer with the context again through Context Store. So I don't keep anything around. I don't sit there and wait. This application, gets something, processes it, and sends it on. And then context store allows me to have some sort of longevity to this conversation. I've timed it out pretty short right now, so it only actually goes for a very short period of time. But I could extend that to be much longer, and so that the context can stay much longer, conversations can last longer. There are other things that I can add to as well. As I can monitor for tone. For tone of things, so I can determine, are things going awry? Do I need to take other actions? Do I need to give other kinds of responses? Within Watson itself and within the dialogues, I can actually build multiple kinds of responses. So I can have my regular response, but I can add variations for things going awry, and I can play the different responses or send back the different responses depending on situations. Again, what is Watson telling me? How should I process this? Again, so very simple. Breeze to tie it together, context store to maintain the context, and Watson does all the real heavy lifting for the conversation. And you can build any text bot in the world at this point, any text bot. So with this technology, there's not a lot of what did they say down in here, because Watson does all of that for me. So again, Andrew Prokop, hope you got something out of this. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.